Hey, I'm going to start day 18 by taking a big risk, and I'm going to let you ladies in on a secret about the male mind that I hope doesn't turn all the guys against me, and now I have no guy friends anymore. But here it is. Guys are visual creatures. Okay, it's out there in the open now. I can't take it back. Guys, please still talk to me even though I gave away one of our secrets. I'm making a generalization, of course. But in general, guys are visual creatures. We are stimulated by the things that we see. In 2000, Stephen Arterburn, I know, 25 years ago, Stephen Arterburn wrote a book called Every Man's Battle. And the book was about exactly what you probably think it was about. It was about battling sexual temptation. In the book, one of the strategies that Stephen Arterburn presents to guys as they're battling temptation is to bounce the eyes, meaning when you see something that is tempting, take your eyes off of that thing. Now, it came out in 2000 while I was still in high school, but I didn't read it until I got to college. And a lot of my friends, a lot of my guy friends also read the book while we were in college. And so it became a pretty common theme that we'd be driving down the interstate and we would see one of those billboards, the ones that flaunt sexuality, that are meant to tempt you, that we would see one of those and one of the guys would say something along the lines of, "Guys, bounce the eyes." And I'm not going to lie and say that it was always done in seriousness, but it was sometimes. Now, the benefit to bouncing the eyes was really quite simple. It would take our eyes off of the thing that was tempting to us, the thing that we had seen, because we're visual creatures. But as a quick side note, it doesn't have to be literally about the eyes. It can be about our thoughts as well. And it doesn't just have to refer to sexual temptation. It can be towards any tempting or evil thing that comes across our path. Guys, in general, sexual temptation is a big one for us. Ladies, I'm not even going to try to make a generalization about your temptations because I know that that's a great way to get myself in trouble by trying to tell you what it is that you think about and what you're tempted by. And I don't feel like getting in any more trouble today, but you know what they are. In the end, it was a great first step. And it was a great reminder from one guy to another. But do you remember the story that we talked about that Jesus told about the evil spirits and how they would leave a person, the house he used the analogy of, and it would wander and it would come back and it would find everything nice and clean up and tidy and it would move right back in and the person was worse off than they were before. The same thing would come up with this strategy. Removing our gaze from the thing that was tempting to us was great, but if we didn't replace it and with a new healthy thing, a new thing in our minds, well, then our minds just kind of began to linger on it. And the image that was already in our brains could be pulled up without any effort, without any intentionality. And then on top of that, we now knew where on the road that billboard would come up. And if we hadn't replaced it with something else, we wouldn't avoid it. Our eyes would instead find their way back to it. Paul writes to the church in Philippi to think about that which is true and noble and right and pure and lovely and admirable and excellent and praiseworthy. Because for Paul, it wasn't just about averting our gaze. It wasn't just about taking our gaze away, but it was about fixing our gaze upon that which was good. It wasn't just about denying ourselves that which our eyes were looking at, but it was about indulging in the good things that our gaze could fall upon instead. The psalmist writes in Psalm 19 about the greatness, the psalm that I invited you to read yesterday, about the greatness of the heavens and the perfection of the law. His mind, the psalmist's mind, was fixed upon those things, upon the heavens and the law. And in the end, by fixing his mind upon the things that were true and noble and right, as Paul would put it, the whole list that he ran down there, in the end, by fixing his mind on those things, the words of his mouth and the meditations of his heart were pleasing to God, his rock and his redeemer. Now, I encourage each of us as we prepare, don't just turn your eyes away from worthless things. Instead, gaze upon his glory. Like the psalmist, You could even take the time to write it down so that you don't forget it later. Today, I want to invite you to gaze upon Psalm 46. You might recognize it as you begin to read it. That's okay. Sit with it anyway. Don't just sit there and go, I've read this, I know this, and move on, but sit with it and ask those questions you were asking yesterday. What is God revealing about himself? And what is he revealing about how he views you? Gaze upon those things. I'll see you tomorrow.